This is really fun. I love seeing people's faces. I do webinars all the time, but we haven't done it in a meeting room like this. And this is a fun way to start my evening and my week. I know I'm supposed to remind everybody that we're to follow the conference's code of conduct and to please read the policies on the New Voices, New Rooms website. And since this is Monday and it could possibly be the first event you're joining today, definitely check those out. So my name is Sara Richmond. You can see that on Zoom right there. I do all the things marketing and communications at Above the Treeline. If you are an Edelweiss user, I guarantee you probably got an email from me. I am that Sara from Edelweiss. So I do a lot of email communications. So I'm pretty excited about our topic today because this is my jam. I do have some slides. I plan to move through them really quickly because they show some visuals of what we're talking about today. And I think our topic really lends itself well to some visuals. I'm hoping to show lots of examples. And so hopefully everybody leaves with some idea of something you could do for your store in the near future. Also, clearly, I'm going to talk about how you can do all of this in Edelweiss 360, which is free for you to use. I know you're all familiar with Zoom at this point. We were having a chat right before this about how we use Zoom for everything these days, and my kids are using Zoom for school. So everybody's already muted yourselves, but feel free to jump in. I'm pretty informal, and I'll try to keep an eye on chat and stop after a little bit and see, but I guarantee we'll have time at the end. I don't have 45 minutes worth of content. I want to make sure to have time for questions as well too. So we'll get started then. So now I know that no one here is new to email marketing. This is not something brand new. Most stores have had some kind of email newsletter or they've done some kind of email marketing prior to this pandemic, but things have definitely changed since March. They continue to do so. I mean, one of the things that's really struck me as we've been talking with our clients is just how adaptable independent bookstores are. And I'm not just saying that to suck up to the audience that's listening right now. It's definitely a truth we all know, but I say that because it hasn't been easy. And I know you all know that and you feel that it's been a really tough summer and fall and lots of challenges to face. Stores have been adapting to the best of their ability, but this has definitely brought some challenges. It's been a significant business shift in business models. For many stores that we work with, online ordering was just a small little piece of their business pre-pandemic, and then overnight, suddenly it became a lifeline. And moving from mostly on-site sales to mostly online sales wasn't an easy transition for many. I mean, we heard from stores right away, how do I do this in my POS? How do I get you the data? What can we do? And one thing is that communicating with your customers via email all of a sudden became more important than ever before because customers weren't able to come into the store. So all of a sudden we had this need to kind of reach customers in a new way. It wasn't just a supplement to our business. It was actually a kind of a primary business task, I guess. So over the past few months, I have been looking for these little sliver of good news here or there, you know, when you can find something positive to kind of grasp a hold of that. I do love all these studies that are showing that consumers are reading more. But consumer studies have also showed that customers are still hesitant to shop inside stores. I know you guys know this, you're seeing this probably in your own areas, definitely the case up here in Michigan where I am. We've also seen across industries, the amount of online shopping has increased a lot. I looked for a stat and they were all over the place. There didn't seem to be one good, reliable stat, but they all showed increases. So it's hard to predict what's going to happen tomorrow, let alone like months and years to come, but it is likely that some of these trends and their impacts are going to be felt for some time. So we might not return to business exactly as it was. We might have some kind of new normal that involves a heavier reliance on virtual communication and online ordering, even from small local businesses. So all that to say, it in no way diminishes the value that indies provide to their customers. In fact, we argue that consumers need indies now more than ever. I mean, it's a really isolating time for many people, and indies provide a connection to the local community. You provide personalized service in this online world with little personality or personalization or connection. Of course, no one really provides carefully curated recommendations like you. Sorry, I talk with my hands, and I realize in Zoom, I'm like, my hands are all over the place. So sorry about that. So the trick then is to apply those strengths that we were just talking about to digital communications, to really take the bookstore experience to your customers. And effective email marketing does just that. So it's going to bring the store experience to your customer's inbox. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Email marketing is one of my favorite things as a marketing professional because it's the most cost effective, but it's also simply just really effective way to stay in touch with your customers. It allows you to reach them wherever they are. About 70% of consumers open emails on their phone. I was reading an article that said people spend an average of 3 hours and 15 minutes every day on their phone alone. And that stat was pre-pandemic. I don't know about you guys, but screen time's definitely up in the Richmond household all around. So it just speaks to people are on their devices, they're on their phone, they're checking email. It's pretty obvious, but worth mentioning that you can reach many, many customers at one time with email. So it's an opportunity to kind of hand sell at scale to reach more customers with personalized recommendations. But I started out in psychology before I moved into marketing, and it's also just about psychology. It allows you to stay present with your customers, even if they don't purchase something immediately. It keeps you front of mind for them, so that when they're ready to make a purchase, they think of you. And your competitors are doing email marketing for these reasons, and you want to be just as present and front of mind with your customers as potential competitors are. But you all run a business, not a volunteer service. So let's be clear. Email marketing is also really popular because it results in sales. So study after study shows this. We've actually found, we ran some numbers with the stores using Edelweiss 360 that I'm going to show you shortly, that targeted campaigns are generating an average of about 38 book sales per 100 customers emailed. So I think, looking at that in many ways, you can see you get what you put into it. The more you focus on email marketing, the higher your returns can be. I hate to even have a slide with Amazon on it, but it's important. It's been said that Amazon makes upwards of 35% of their revenue from their recommendation engine and email marketing. They're able to use all their customer data to create these really targeted email campaigns, which was hard for smaller businesses to compete with until now for very real reasons that you're very familiar with. So all of this, of course, brings us to Edelweiss 360. This was actually something that was born at the ABA Winter Institute a couple years ago. John was having some conversations with bookstore owners about their challenges and what was needed. And then we began beta testing it last fall. Then, of course, the pandemic hit, stores had to close, and we immediately made it available for stores to free. We just moved up our launch date. In addition to providing a system for stores to build these targeted email campaigns, it does also provide this optional mobile experience and kind of customer online community. That part we're still building out and expanding. I'm going to stay really focused on the email aspect today, but I just wanted to mention that it's really kind of morphing into digital customer experiences that stores can opt into. All right. So one of the questions I get a lot when I'm talking to stores about Edelweiss 360 is, why would a store want to use Edelweiss 360 in addition to or instead of the current way you do email marketing? Because you probably have Constant Contact or MailChimp, Emma, something like that right now. Well, to answer that, I think about how easy it is to create the right content for the right targeted audience. That's like marketing strategy 101. If you take any marketing class, they're like the right customers at the right time with the right content. Some of what we're talking about today can certainly be replicated in your current email marketing strategy. So regardless of whether you use Edelweiss 360 or not, in terms of email design, for example, you could certainly download jacket covers, copy title data and links, then upload them into your system to create those pretty emails. You probably do that already. I totally have done that myself many times. I was just teaching an intern how to do it today, actually. And if you do the marketing and email marketing for your store, we can be honest, it sucks, right? Like, it takes time. There's room for error. I'm always triple checking my links to make sure it's going to the right book listing. The nice thing about Edelweiss 360 is that you don't have to do any of that. The title images, the links, the data is already there when you're creating a campaign. Also, in terms of email targeting, you could also create segmented lists of your customers based on what type of emails they like. You could match that up with, the titles you have in your store by looking at your POS system. All of that takes a lot of time, and quite frankly, if you do that, you are like above and beyond most stores and really most small businesses in general. I mean, if most of us have to settle for what we call like the spray and pray method. Have you guys heard that in marketing, where you send out one message to a whole bunch of people and you just hope you get some hits? However, going back to Amazon, targeting is what makes email marketing super successful. It's also, remember, what indies are so awesome at in their stores. It's personalization. So a cookie cutter email strategy just doesn't really fit with what makes indies so great. It's also worth mentioning with 360 that you don't need any advanced training in email marketing or graphic design. It's just, I think I've said 4 times now, it's easy, right? But it's important because when things are easy and they're fast, we do them more often. And when we send more emails, we sell more books. And so it's important that it's easy and fast. All right. So when you have title data and inventory data and customer data and sales data and all your staff reviews and your collections from Edelweiss, what's possible? And I'll be honest, when we released this early to stores, we weren't quite sure what to expect. We just kind of set booksellers loose in Edelweiss 360 and said, we'll help you figure this out, but do what kind of campaigns you want. But no surprise, booksellers got really creative right away. And I think there's a lot we can learn from looking at these examples of how they've carried their store's personality and their expertise over into their customer emails. So I'm just going to start walking through some examples and talk about them. But first, I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to all the stores who so happily agreed to share their examples with us today. It's possible some of you are listening right now, and I just want to say we appreciate you. But before I jump in to start showing email campaigns, I do want to see, are you guys still seeing my screen? Awesome. This is what my kids' first grade class does. The teacher goes, can you see my screen? And they all do thumbs up. All right, awesome. Okay, so here's one from the Bookworm, which is just an adorable little logo as well. As a mom, I found this email really compelling. It's personal children's recommendations from their children's buyer sent to me because I purchased children's books from them in the past. And I, quite frankly, am so tired of reading the same books over and over again to my 6-year-old during this pandemic that if a bookstore sends me ideas, I will give them all my money. So I thought this was a really timely email, but I loved that this one came from their children's buyer. The next one might come from their adult fiction buyer and so forth. And it's really targeted to the audience as well. I'm showing examples now. I know probably some of you are going, oh, how does this all work? I'll get to that in a second too. I just want to show some of these examples. This is an example campaign from Hungerford Bookshop. I'm probably saying that wrong because it's in the UK and I don't have a British accent, but imagine I do. This theme was earlier this summer on summer reading. So clearly right now, this doesn't look like your normal cookie cutter sales email. It feels more like an email from a friend. If you go out to their website, it also feels very much like them, right? Like this is how their website looks. It's talking about how the store is operating, how customers can come shop, but then it's sharing just a few titles of that they're most excited about with links to buy or order. But here's what I really love. I had to put it on a second screen because it wasn't quite big enough. But towards the bottom of the email, if a reader wants to browse more titles, they can click to open up a collection of titles that were curated by the store on the same theme. So this is just an Edelweiss collection. So many of you have created Edelweiss collections before. This store went in and created a summer reading Edelweiss collection, and then that translates into Edelweiss 360 and pulls those into a customer-facing collection. I do want to mention though, you guys, if you've done email marketing, you know one of the major things is to have clear call to action buttons. So many people skim emails, they just don't read everything. So it's really important to have real clear call to action buttons throughout too. kind of the email marketing 101 there, but it's important. Here's a really cool campaign from the Haunted Bookshop. That's over in Iowa, I think. They take their staff reviews, which again are already in Edelweiss, and they use them to highlight staff picks in their customer emails. Makes it a really easy way to have something kind of like shelf talkers. So I think this is just a really cool, much better than reading an anonymous review on a website. As customers trust you, they trust your recommendations, they probably know your staff and care about what they think about that title. This becomes really effective when you send it specifically to customers who've purchased comparable titles in the past. So if you've used Edelweiss before, you know that publishers, they post comparable titles for every title, and that helps you determine how many of that title to purchase, for example. It's really helpful in ordering. We use those same comparable titles from the publisher and we can translate over into Edelweiss 360 so that you can send this Hero of the Ninth, I hope I said that right, book to customers who've purchased those comparable titles in the past from you. So you know they're probably interested, they've purchased similar titles. You can also edit that. You know better than the publisher many times about what titles you have on hand that are comparable. You can also just pick customers who've purchased within certain sections of your store in the past. So maybe your sci-fi section or your young adult section, for example. So targeting is what makes this, I think, really impactful. Here's another example that shows the store giving them an update on how customers can purchase from them. I bet you have all sent an email like that, or maybe a couple, as things have been changing all the time in the pandemic. This one then is just highlighting new releases that the customer might be interested in. I think what I really love about this, because I use email marketing a lot, is that you can change what the button says. You could add a blurb next to the title if you wanted to talk about what it is, or you can just show the jacket cover. You can say recommended for you, or hey, I think you might like these titles. It really should have kind of your personality behind it. So events are another great thing to include in email communications. Here's an example from Haunted Bookshop on their customer newsletter, providing information about all their upcoming events. In fact, when I looked at it, I thought it was the ABA events. You know how they have that schedule that we were using? Anyway, it automatically pulls in the jacket cover. There's space to add an author bio pic if you have it. You can even link directly to Eventbrite and integrate with that if you want to. But that's from their customer newsletter that they send out to all of their customers. Then here's an example, same store, of a very targeted event email. So this one was about a specific event for a local author to relevant customers. So it's short, sweet. I mean, there's one call to action in this email. So that's super impactful. It's worth mentioning here maybe that many stores are using Edelweiss 360 right now in addition to their existing email marketing strategy. So they're still oftentimes sending their customer newsletters however they did before. They have that kind of process worked out, but they're then adding these personalized, targeted, specific campaigns using 360 to their existing strategy. So that's a great way to give it a try, see how it might work while keeping your process going with your customer newsletters. And that's what we see Haunted Bookshop doing. So similarly, here's an example from Watermark that looks like a personal invitation to a specific event. I think their branding's adorable too. This one was sent specifically to customers who purchased similar titles in the past. So it was really relevant, really personal, timely for that event as well. But I love this one from Boulder Bookstore, because if you haven't made bread during this pandemic, I guarantee you know somebody who's all of a sudden become a sourdough expert. So this event was for them. Really kind of made this cookbook event feel really timely and interesting. Got some really great click rates, and I didn't hear how the event went, but hopefully it was a lot of fun. But this, I think, has gone down as my all-time favorite because the store has a chocolate club. I think that's genius. I love chocolate, so I'm a little biased. But so this email is about a chocolate event for their chocolate club, and attendees receive, you guessed it, they get chocolate. So I would have given it a click for sure. It's not even about books. You can send any type of email to your customers. This was simply about their chocolate club, which I think is great. You need to have a chocolate club right above the tree line for sure. Okay, so I don't expect you to be able to read all of that, but this one was really interesting to me because it's a recent example from Wacoma Bookstore, and it included a bit more text than normal, which is almost like a no-no in marketing. You're supposed to have like real short, keep it short and sweet, but it's really powerful because it comes across like a personal email, like a personal conversation with the store. Then they're sharing this like insider publishing industry info and calling out then what it means to them, the customer. So what it's saying is, for holiday shopping, customers should pre-order when possible. They should start shopping early in case there's delays in printing. They should ship early in case there's delays in shipping. But not only does it share the expertise that they have, but it's kind of creating this personal relationship with Jenny, their buyer, and what Jenny's been doing to help their customers. So it makes customers feel really cared for. It's definitely not an email you get from a big online retailer, and that I think is what makes it really stand out. And he snuck in a few pre-order titles, new releases that in the bottom as well. So switching gears just a bit, here's another example of an email that will really stand out because in customer inboxes, because it went out the week before the Democratic National Convention and was about titles related to the DNC. So it had titles about Biden and Harris and top issues like COVID-19 being discussed at the convention. That one, if I remember right, like the open rate was like 65% or something pretty crazy for email marketing. But when you have a big event that's on people's minds and you have an opportunity to send a targeted email, can be really, really effective. Now, Book Bugs and Dragon Tales is a children's shop across the pond in the UK, but I highlight it because it's owned by our very own Dan Frid, who's my coworker on our customer support team. He uses Edelweiss 360 for his own store campaigns, and I just love this one about a new book to the store. The whole email was to feature this one book, True or Pooh. But I can just hear his voice when you read it. It really highlights his store's personality, which is him and his wife and their personality, that the owners. But it's just an email you'd want to receive from your buddy Dan telling you about a cool book. He took the opportunity to share a blurb, we call it, but a little recommendation about True or Pooh. And then below that, he just features two similar titles as well, just with their jacket covers. So one call to action really there in the middle, but it was a really fun email. I mean, who wouldn't open an email from Dan about a book called True or Pooh? I thought that was really fun. I snuck this one in today. I got this email this morning as a customer of Brain Lair Books, which is over in South Bend, Indiana. It's about a beautiful it's a beautiful reminder about an event that's happening in an hour or two. It's happening tonight, but she just logged in, said, hey, reminder, we got this event going on, and also took the opportunity to recommend some similar titles, which was pretty cool. There's nothing cooler for me than getting customer emails that are sent from our platform. I think that's just the coolest. So finally, here's one of my favorites. I've probably said that 4 or 5 times now, but I really do love this. Itinerant Literate uses Edelweiss 360 to send emails to individual customers. So she's talking to Tyler in this case. She probably talked to him on the phone, or maybe he came into the store. And then she emailed him afterwards with links to all the books they talked about in their conversation. And she can do that because it just takes a few minutes. But I thought that was really cool because it literally, the subject was, hey, Tyler, here's those books we talked about. That's even easier to do. I just want to mention quickly in 360, because if you send us your customer data, you can pull up individual customer reviews. So if you were on the phone with Tyler, you could see what books he purchased before, what books you've recommended to him before, what events he's gone to, which makes you look really darn smart. Maybe like a stalker, like maybe you wouldn't want to say all the details, but it does give you a lot of information. And depending on your POS system, you might not be able to pull up views like this. Maybe you have something similar already, but I just wanted to throw that out there. So I couldn't show all the great campaigns in the time we have today, but I logged into a whole bunch of store accounts and I checked out which events they have planned in the coming months. So I wanted to just share some more. Maybe one of these sparks an idea for you. Again, for each of these, I think the takeaway, the power comes not from sending a back to school campaign to all of your customers, but in targeting it to parents, for example, or customers who've purchased similar titles to those titles you're recommending. Because when you send relevant recommendations, your customers get more value from your emails, and then they want more emails from you as well too. So some really cool ideas there, all from other stores. I love the too much HGTV with home improvement titles, because that's totally been my pandemic experience so far, has been too many home projects. Just when you thought we were done, here are a few more. But what you can see is you could create an entire content calendar, right? With these creative, timely campaigns planned out for the whole year, which has always been my dream in marketing, is to be that organized, to really kind of have a whole, like, I know what I'm sending in February. I already have that planned out. I haven't quite actualized that dream yet, but someday. But Jill over at Fiction Addiction she is living the dream. So she's done just that in Edelweiss 360. It allows her to be really super efficient. So what she's done is she's gone in and created a lot of campaigns for the future. Maybe 100 or so that she plans to send in the past year potentially, or the next year. So when she is adding a title to an order in Edelweiss, she can click Add to Campaign, pick the appropriate campaign in 360. And then whenever she gets to fleshing out that campaign, maybe months from now, maybe closer to Mother's Day, if it's the Mother's Day one, she already has a list of titles in that campaign that she can play with. She can move them around, edit as needed, but she is really planning ahead there and saving herself some time. All right, so I'm going to show kind of what it looks like and answer some more nitty-gritty questions, but Nikki, I can pause if you've had any questions pop up. I can jump into any right now.
Somebody has asked if they can pull things from their tags to put into a campaign. So
yes, absolutely. That was a request from a store early on, which was genius. And so definitely you can tag customers. It allows you to do really fancy things, like a lot of the higher end email marketing platforms where you can tag and add them in different things. But yeah, definitely tags. Just like, tags are what makes Edelweiss. If you can get really slick with tags, you can do the same thing. You can pull in tag titles too. So if you have a habit as a store of tagging titles in certain ways, you'll see those in Edelweiss 360 too.
Okay, and you've also have some questions here. Can you talk about the POS systems that you work with?
Yes. So I'll provide a little bit more detail with that. Edelweiss 360 is in many ways an add-on to Edelweiss Plus Analytics. You don't have to be using Edelweiss Plus Analytics right now, and I'll reinforce this a little bit later. But if you are an Edelweiss Analytics subscriber, we already have your inventory data, and it's real easy to just turn on. If you're not, we just get that inventory data at the same time we're signing you up for 360. So if you're already an Edelweiss Plus Analytics subscriber, you're good. The POS system that you have, we work with, and it's fine. It's the same. We have a list of about 60 POS systems that we work with. Definitely the major ones have already been through the process of 360 sign up. I'm sure there are some out there that will get that we need to work through that process of adding customer transaction data. But the big ones, even Square is actually a instant. You sign a Square form and an API pulls immediately, so it's instantaneous in real time. And all of the big POS systems are fine too. And if you're not sure, definitely shoot us an email and we'll be able to send you the link to the page with all of the POS systems that we work with.
And Sara, can you share your slideshow with us after this so that we can share it with our attendees?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. And also and I can send the link in a minute, if you go out to your virtual event trade show page, your exhibit page, if you go out to the Edelweiss, there's links to all of the Edelweiss 360 pages, along with Edelweiss information and Edelweiss Plus Analytics information and support and training resources too. Good questions. All right.
And do you have any recommendations how often people should email their customers?
That's a good one. I feel like oftentimes people are afraid of sending too many emails. There's a good rule of thumb that you should aim to send at least 2 a month. And you'll talk to different people with email marketing, and then they'll have different recommendations. But you want to stay present and front of mind with your customers. The more targeted your emails are, you're sending to a smaller audience each time, but also that audience, if they're getting information that they're actually interested in. So when you send targeted emails, you can actually send them more often without bugging your customers, if you imagine. For example, like if you were featuring a new golf title, for example, and you sent that to everybody. Okay, I'm not a golf fan, so I'm going to say like 95% of your customers would probably be like, ugh, Sarah, stop telling me about golf. You might get some unsubscribed because it's not valuable to them. But when you email people who have already purchased golf or similar titles in the past, then they go, ooh, cool, I'm really interested in this golf title. So targeting, I think, it plays a big role in determining how frequently you should email your customers. We do have you can set in Edelweiss 360 how often you want to email each individual customer. And so if you say no more than once a week and you're sending out emails, it will automatically filter customers out that you emailed earlier that week, so that you can prevent them from getting emails too often. Which tends to be the most important for like your really, really core customer group who's purchased all sorts of titles, and so they show up as a potential customer in all sorts of targeting. So that's a nice duplicate check. Well, how about I jump in and kind of walk through a little bit more details, and probably folks will have more questions then. Okay, we can talk through it. So I'll show you kind of the where to sign up if you're interested in a minute, but signing up is easy. It's free, like I mentioned. If I were a marketing person, there's no skin in the game, right? Like you might as well give it a try. I definitely would, and especially seeing the results that stores are getting and the feedback that they've had, because it's easy to use. It's definitely a nice thing to try out. Once we activate it for you, when you log into Edelweiss 360, you just see that little icon in the top header, and you click on it, and it takes you into Edelweiss 360. So it's not a different login, no different password, thank goodness. And you can start campaigns multiple ways. Most people click the Create Campaign button there. So in many ways, if you've used I've used 4 or 5 different email marketing platforms, and they all kind of work the same. And if you're familiar with the process of creating a campaign, it's going to be super, super easy. In fact, it's a whole lot easier than the email marketing campaign platform that I use. So when you click that create a new campaign, you see something that looks like this, and you can name it. So I named it Cookbook for Cooks. And then you have 2 buttons. You can add your content, add titles, events, or collections, or you can add your customers. That's when you do your targeting. So from here, you can search for titles. So if you were looking for that sourdough book, you go pull this up, and it has the basic information on that title, including how many you have on hand or on order. And we know that because we have your POS data feed in there, which is a nice queue and then you just add in your books. Or if you have done what Jill at Fiction Addiction's gotten so good at, and as you have been creating orders in Edelweiss, you've been just adding titles here or there as you go, you would already see a list of titles when you opened up this campaign, which I just think is so cool. And then when you go to add customers, this is when you can target. You can also just send it to everybody. That's that all active button. But you can target in many ways. You could send it to individual customers, that's what Itinerant Literate was doing. You can do it to customers you've tagged. That was a question earlier. You could send it to customers who purchased from certain sections or departments from your store, who've purchased comparable titles or other books from that author. So lots of ways to target and really send it to the customers who are going to care about it the most. See that little check button, exclude those recently emailed? That's what I was talking about earlier. And you can set the time frame for that for your store, which is fun. So then when you do that, you get kind of what you see here. So you have the content on the left and you have your customers on the right. And just like that, you have a content for your campaign, and then you can see what it looks like. And so this is very similar. It looks pretty similar to any other email marketing platform you're probably used to. This is where you add your snazzy subject line. You could have it come from you, or you could change that and have it come from another buyer, another person at your store. You can add a custom message at the top. A lot of the examples we saw earlier took great advantage of that and added personal information there. You can also select whether you want to use title blurbs. Those are those little shelf talkers, a little summary of the title that shows next to it, like this Mark Bittman's Kitchen Matrix that you see here. And you can pick the blurb supplied by the publisher. You could pick from any of your staff reviews on that, or you could just write it right there and customize the blurb as you see it. And then you can see a lot of the typical email settings that you're used to seeing as well. You can send yourself a preview. I do that before I send any email out. And then you can send it now, or you could schedule it out into the future. And then ta-da, your customers receive a mobile-friendly targeted email with your kind of personal voice and your expertise coming through loud and clear.
Sorry. We have a question here about your mailing lists. Can you add customers who are not in your POS system?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So you have two ways of doing kind of customer emails, and we have the flexibility because every store is different. A lot of stores had emails for their loyalty program over here and emails for customer and it just did this different. And so the nice thing, if it comes from your POS system, then we can link it with the sales transactions. So that's the reason, if your POS system's set up to allow that, it's pretty cool. It allows a little bit more tracking, which we'll see just on the next slide. But you can also just email and upload a list anytime you want. You could upload 20 lists if you had 20 different lists in different places. So either way, or both. Lots of stores do both. Okay. It's kind of built for however you're set up. So everybody's different.
And do you have a recommendation for them? I know we asked about the number of times you email people, but what about the number of products you put in each email?
Number of titles in each email?
Yeah, that you put in each email. Do you have?
Well, that's a good question. You know, it varies a little bit. You do have to keep an eye on size because, you know, people reading emails will only stay with you for so long. I don't think that we've seen really a hard and fast rule with that, or we've seen click rates drop off at a certain point, but we also haven't had stores put a ton in. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think everyone kind of follows that best practice of, you know, limit your featured titles to a handful. You know, I would say no more than 8 or 9. But then we saw earlier an example of a store then linked to a collection if they wanted to explore more. I think that's a creative way if, like, you know, they're kind of your babies. It's hard to pick just a few. But if you kind of keep your featured titles that really stand out in the email up high, and then you can link to more at the bottom too. It's kind of a good compromise. Okay. But the nice thing about targeting is it makes it easier to narrow down the number of books. When you want to send one email to everybody, I always feel that, I know I do when I send an email like that, like I have I want to pull in everything, right? Because I want to meet the needs of everybody. But when you target it, it's like, oh, these customers, I have these 3 new titles coming in I want to feature, and it becomes a lot easier not to feature too many in one email.
And the buy buttons in these emails, where's the fulfillment coming from?
It's going directly to your website, and it depends on, you know, a lot of folks use Indie Commerce, and so it's going through that. But we have flexibility on that as well, because again, every store is kind of set up differently, and there's different e-commerce systems. But we link to whatever you use right now.
Gotcha.
There. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's pretty snazzy how it does that.
I've been trying to ask you questions, but then everybody who's in the event has been answering them as well for the.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's nice.
Some people listening then probably know way more about this than I do.
I think a lot of people who were the authors of your demonstration.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Newsletters are huge now.
Oh man, it's been so fun to work with the stores. We have literally our team is like fighting over each other and who gets to work with the stores on different campaigns because it's so much fun. But we have a great team working on it and great clients. And they've also, and I mean, I think if you use 360, what you'll see too is we're still wanting to make it work better and better for stores. And so our team is actively developing and working on things that stores are like, oh, it'd be really cool if it does this, or what if it did this, that'd be awesome. And so we're still making improvements to it too.
And if stores if they want to get in touch with Edelweiss to have a consult to set this up,
yes.
the information is on your exhibit page?
Yep, it is. And I think in 2 slides, I have all that information too. I think I just have a couple more slides and that's my last one there. So one of the things I just wanted to end with, because it didn't really fit anywhere else, but is really important, is just measurement. And I think this is one of the things that makes Edelweiss 360 unique. I mean, you're probably tracking some measure of success for your email marketing already. If you have like Constant Contact or MailChimp, they're always telling you the open and the click rates, right? And in 360, you're going to see those same sorts of numbers you're used to. And what we've seen with more targeted email is the more targeted it is, the higher the open rate, the higher the click percentages, because you're sending, relevant, sorry about that, relevant email to customers. And so, I mean, there's been some really high open rates for campaigns because they're sending it to, maybe as small as 50 customers, but 50 customers that really cared about those titles. And then there's bigger campaigns. I grabbed an example here that was sent to almost 4,000 customers. And so there's a big variation there as well. But you see the deliveries, the opens, the clicks. But what you also see that's unique to 360, and is because it's linked to your POS system, is sales conversions. And so we measure that 3 different ways. One is it converts, that's just basic sales conversion. So those are customers who received this email and purchased one of the titles in the email. But then we have halo sales. That's a customer who received this email, bought a featured title, and also made another purchase at the same time. So that's like the dream, right? Is that if someone goes in and buys the Obama book that you featured in the email, but then while they're there, started browsing and bought 5 other books. And so that shows up as a halo sale that you can track. And then P10 refers to the number of purchases made by the customers you emailed within 10 days. So this one is maybe oddly enough my favorite because it's kind of the holy grail as a marketing person, because it measures the indirect impact of email marketing on customer behavior. We always know that when you send emails and your name just pops up in the inbox, that it might spark them to go to your website later and create some orders, but you can't track that, or you haven't really been able to track that in the past. So this just is one measure that kind of shows that, in the next week and a half, if they made any purchases, which is fun. Last but not least, there's one thing there that says CCM. That stands for Consumer Collaborative Marketing, which is currently in beta with about, I think it's 10 publishers right now. I'm pausing because I know there's several that want to sign up. They're really excited to support the indies in this way. So it's still beta, but we're adding more publishers to it. And it's not beta in terms that it's not real. Stores are getting money already in the beta. So what it does, it compensates indies for including participating publisher titles in your store campaigns. It's based on a CPM, or a cost per thousand basis, which is a basic advertising measure. If you advertise on social media, it's on CPM. So what's cool though is you're still ultimately in control. You don't have to include any of the sponsored titles at all. But if you do, free money, which is fun. The rate takes into consideration the quality of emails sent, the relative prominence of the title in the campaign. So if it's the first title, it's worth more to the publisher than if it's the 9th title, for example. And also the degree to which the campaign's targeted. So it actually wants more targeted emails. And so that's been really exciting. For example, HarperCollins was the main driver behind that. All of their titles are out there. Oftentimes a sponsored publisher, there's a basic sponsorship rate, but then they'll boost certain titles even more, and you can see that it'll be like 5 times. It's 5 times the normal boost. So for example, if they had a new Stephen King book coming out, they would probably boost that at least a few times because they really want to incentivize bookstores to include that in some kind of campaign that's coming out, which has been fun. We sent the first payments out to stores last month, which was really fun. Okay, so here's the slide I was talking about. Just a little bit about setup. I think we mentioned this already. If you are an Edelweiss Plus Analytics subscriber, we already have your sales and inventory data. So we would just need to add your customer transaction data. Or if your POS doesn't make that easy, which most do, but say that doesn't, or you want to start tomorrow, you can just upload a customer list. So that's kind of in your hands. If you're new to Edelweiss Plus Analytics, we'll just sign you up for a free year of the intro level to Edelweiss Plus Analytics. So you'll get kind of some basic features that maybe you didn't sign up for, but you get them. So we'll get your inventory and sales data, and then we'll get your customer data if we can, or you can just upload customer list. I will also mention, I kind of talked about our team already, but they're there to help and they really enjoy helping. So the data setup can go very quickly. And then a lot of stores haven't needed our help, but we want to help. So we have a lot of on-demand resources. A lot of stores have just gotten in there and created their first campaign. Some of them just want us to review their first one before they send it out, and that's cool. We can take a look at it. But we're also available for web training if needed as well. Everybody's got different preference there. So there's some of the information, as well as the new Voices, New Rooms org schedule, so you can find out what comes on after this too. Any other questions coming in, Nikki?
Let's see.
Sorry, I have multiple screens going on, and for some reason the chat is like behind me.
The chat has just been sort of, just looking through here.
If we didn't get to your question, you can certainly, if you email 360 support at Above the Treeline, it goes specifically to our support team that supports Edelweiss 360. So sort of our subject matter experts. You can also email me at Sara@AboveTheTreeline.com, SARA, and I can help as well.
Okay. Well, I think that seems to be all the questions. We have lots of comments and people who use them. And
and Jill's on. Hi, Jill. That's awesome.
We are now getting ready to go to, I believe we're going to our, well, there's a cocktail party on right now, and then a dinner with some authors called The Immigrant Experience. I'm posting a link in the chat, so if you all, everybody who's still here, enjoyed this session, that's our feedback form. We'd like to hear from you what you liked about it, and or what you didn't, and it will help us as we're plan more of these events. So, but I think we're good, so we can sign off now. And Sarah, thank you so much. This was like eye-opening.
Thanks for having us. And if you guys have questions about, I know oftentimes when we talk about one product, people come having questions about another one. So if you have questions about Edelweiss or Edelweiss Plus Analytics and you were hoping to get some help with that, I just posted the link to our exhibit page that has a link to how to contact us, and we'd be more than happy to set up a phone call or some web support, or just send us a question if you have something about those too.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody
have fun at the cocktail party
evening, and hopefully we'll see you this evening at some of the other events, and have a great show.
Thanks, Nikki.